Gurmaigad Eliascan Corlia agus Boilem Kist Erdu can tennis in you for than Hostashi at Takar Shagamore or Highly, agus a Hennish and Givru Igboli Lin, agus to Emni or Highly or Fod instead, we Hostash Funyev, Oglaru, Gold Pricene, got an Erge, agus an Erge, agus the Michael Yorfweka, Aku, Hon Billy Eek, agus Nasacha, Honya Degal. Nish ta policy against CRU, Nami. Cad ag na Doherty Funyev tithe dícheanglu le lenin gevru ac ní bhain na policy seo leis an 340 míle duine a gúsid mádar réib íciachta. A chanis thug an tíise a acail thug sé gealtnas ag an jeú seaartain seo ná mé customer usage mádar réib íciachta a dícheanglu. Agus an ceiste thug am ardaniu a chaniste anhfuil an rialtas an policy thuirteiste a thuris bart ar éir bríthar an tíise. Tonish, at the weekend, the Taoiseach gave a commitment that nobody would be disconnected from electricity supply this winter. That was a commitment that would be welcomed by many, many people who were very concerned, very worried. But yesterday, when he was pressed by our party leader and other members of the opposition in relation to how this would work in detail, how it would work in practice, he wasn't able to provide any answers. Workers and families, Taoiseach, are under severe pressure in the face of a cost of living and energy crisis. Electricity suppliers are constantly announcing price hikes, and we've had price hikes this week in effect. Your continuing refusal to cap electricity prices at pre-crisis levels have left people wide open to further hikes, and ultimately households who can't pay their bills are in danger of disconnection. Now, in the first half of this year, we had 712 households were disconnected, and that was before the impact of the huge price increases in bills and indeed the impact of winter, because the weather has started to turn. It is getting colder, winter is nearly here, and workers and families need certainty. The plan to introduce a ban on disconnections for bill pay customers from December until February is not good enough. It leaves people waiting far too long for protection, and the time span is too short. There's 125,000 households are currently in arrears, and this figure, unfortunately, is only going in one direction. So what's needed, Taoiseach, is an immediate ban on disconnections now, and to run that ban right through to the end of March. And crucially, because this will not apply to workers and families with a prepay meter. So we need to give effect to the Taoiseach's commitment. There are approximately 346,000 households who use prepay electricity meters in this state. Now, the CRU have warned that there could be difficulties providing additional credits to pay-as-you-go customers. Many of those on prepaid meters are already rationing their electricity for fear of being cut off, and there's growing concern that these households are effectively disconnecting. Households who pay as they go for their energy are at greater risk now than in the coming months, as they are unable to spread the cost across the year like direct debit customers. So, Taoiseach, my question to you is, the Taoiseach gave a very firm commitment on behalf of your government at the weekend. As I said, a commitment that was welcome to people who are struggling and find it difficult to keep the lights on this winter. It was a commitment that was welcomed in particular by the 340,000 people who are on prepaid meters, who unfortunately have no guarantee that they will not be disconnected this winter. So how is your government going to live up to that promise? How are you going to ensure that those customers that are vulnerable, those who are paying actually higher tariffs through prepaid meters, those who are inflicted with a penalty if they want to go on to bill pay, how are you going to ensure that they have the same certainty that every customer has in terms of bill pay customers this winter? Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy, for raising the question. First of all, just want to acknowledge the fact that energy and gas prices are very high, and they're likely to rise more in the months ahead before they level off and start falling again. But I'd also like to remind the Deputy that we did have a budget here only last week. That gives every household, including households that use pay-as-you-go meters, €600 in energy credits over the course of the winter. And because a lot of people who use pay-as-you-go meters are on social welfare or are low-income families, they will benefit from the double social welfare payment, for example, the double child benefit payment, and also measures like the €500 bonus for people receiving the working family payment, all of that will arrive in people's pockets, more money in their pockets before Christmas. None of that was in the Sinn Féin alternative budget proposal. So a lot of help is on the way. As the ESRI pointed out in its analysis, the least well-off 30% of people will be fully protected from the rise in the cost of living, at least until the end of the winter. And for that reason, the vast majority of people should and will be able to manage their bills over the next few months. I acknowledge that there will be some hardship cases. There always are. And for that reason, we need to help. For people who are on bill pay, the moratorium and disconnections runs until the end of February, for vulnerable customers until the end of March. For people using pay-as-you-go meters, as you understand and as I understand, that's a much more complicated system because of the way it operates. However, the credit that people have, the overdraft that they have, is now extended to €20, so people can run over the meter by up to €20 without facing the risk of disconnection. And in addition to that, having spoken to some people who are on pay-as-you-go meters, it's already the case that, at least in a lot of that you can't be disconnected, for example, at a weekend, so that people have the time to top up. That's not the full solution, and that's not an adequate solution at this stage, and I appreciate the point you're making in terms of equality of treatment between those who are in bill pay and those who are in pay-as-you-go meters. So with that in mind, Minister Ryan today and yesterday has been meeting with the energy companies to see what additional measures we can put in place to protect people who are on pay-as-you-go meters. As it stands, vulnerable customers who are on pay-as-you-go meters have to be put on the most economic tariff, and the amount you can run over by has been extended by €10 to €20, and at least in some cases that protection is in place to prevent disconnections at the weekend. I know that's not enough, and we will need to come up with a better solution for those hardship cases to make sure that people are not disconnected over the winter, regardless as to how they pay. And those meetings today and yesterday involving Minister Ryan and the energy companies are happening, and we should be able to give you a fuller response in due course.
Dr. Doherty.
Thank you, Taoiseach. I think you mentioned in relation to what was done in the budget, and you were wrong in relation to what we suggested. We did have double payments, we had cash payments and all the rest, but I won't go into that because it's a different issue. Because even with the budget announcement, there is a guarantee for many, many customers from December right through to February that no matter how difficult they find it in terms of paying their bills, their electricity will not be turned off. The lights will stay on for those customers. And then there's those 346,000 customers that don't have that commitment. And that's the issue that we're dealing with here. It's an issue of fairness, it's an issue of equality, it's an issue to make sure that all customers are treated the same. So you talk about a €20 energy credit. The reality is that €20 isn't going to stretch far. And yes, they can't disconnect at the weekend, and yes, they can't disconnect at certain hours during the day. But the reality is, Monday comes around and the lights are off. You have no electricity. You have no way to actually, turn on the TV, turn on the lights, or indeed many other basic functions. And that's the problem here. So can I ask you, do you agree with the principle that disconnection should be banned for prepaid meters right through the winter, as the Taoiseach gave that commitment? Do you, as Taoiseach, stand up and stand over that commitment, and is that the policy objective that you want to see with the energy companies?
Thanks, Deputy. The answer to your question is yes, I do. But because of the way pay-as-you-go works, we have to find a viable mechanism to achieve exactly that. The energy credit is €600, Deputy. In addition to that, somebody can overrun by €20 without being disconnected. They can't be disconnected at weekends, and we're looking at mechanisms to make sure we can extend that treatment, the treatment that bill pay customers have, to pay-as-you-go customers, and I believe it can be done. But I can understand, Deputy, why you don't want to talk about the Sinn Féin alternative budget. I've done a bit of research on that. Take the fuel allowance, for example. Sinn Féin committed to a €5 increase in the fuel allowance. That would be worth €60 to the least well-off people in our society between now and Christmas. We're providing a €400 lump sum. For working family payments, you provided nothing. These are working poor people. We provided a €500 lump sum. And for people living alone, Deputy, your party proposed a €2.50 increase in the living alone allowance. We provide a lump sum of €200 before Christmas. Based on your proposals, somebody would have to live alone for another year and a half. Another year and a half.
Thank you. We're moving on. Come ed bogger arai guji on kid Dr. Dala